We acknowledge the original owners of the land on which we podcast, whose stories were told for thousands of years. Today, we are recording in Meanjin. We pay our respects to elders past and present who may be listening. Sovereignty was never ceded. A quick note before we get started that there may be some swearing in today's podcast. If you don't like swearing or usually listen with children in the car, you have been warned. You're listening to What in the NDIS Now, a podcast where I, Hannah Redford, and my friend Sam Rosenbaum interview participants and providers about all things NDIS. Hi Sam, how are you going?
Yeah, going well, Hannah. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
That's good. Who have we got on today's episode?
We have the lovely Daniel. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
How you going, Daniel?
I'm good, thanks.
That's good. Welcome onto the podcast.
Cheers.
So, as always, our first question is, where did you grow up?
Originally, I was born on the Gold Coast. I was there for 25 years, I think. And then I moved up to Brisbane, where I've been for, what am I now, 37, 30, 38? I don't know. You get to a certain age and you just forget, I think, right? I'm just really struggling to remember my age these days. I think I'm 30. I think I'm 37. I think I'm 37. 86. Anyway, 37. So I've been here since then.
Nice. So Queenslander through and through, hey?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Fantastic. So, how did you get into the disability sector?
That's a great question. Well, I am disabled, quite obviously, and so, you know, I was born into the disability sector, but when I completed my IT degree and went on to do a Masters of International Business, I reflected on my past as a mover and shaker of the scene, and you know, my parents owned restaurants, so I grew up around just hospitality, right? And we always went out dining, and you know, my parents would take me out a lot as a kid, and we went to different restaurants, trying different restaurants. Usually, you know, my father knew the owner or the chef working in that particular restaurant, or maybe not. Maybe we were just trying something new, and so I grew up around that, and I've always loved going out, dining out. I'm a coffee fiend. Is that the word? Fiend?
Yep.
And as you can see, I'm holding a coffee. None of you can see that, but I'm holding
Cute little
a coffee.
espresso shot he's got.
Yeah. That my wife kindly brought to me as soon as I stepped into the room. I wish I had somebody always nearby just to hand me a coffee as soon as
Look, if someone could just bring me a coffee every time I needed one, or my hands did not have a cup of coffee in it, that would be living the dream.
Yeah. So because I grew up around that, you know, I noticed, like, I've been doing that forever. Been going out drinking coffee and wining and dining. And I noticed these, all these QR systems popping up, right? And I noticed that they're not particularly terrific. And they are also very physical. So they require, like, somebody to physically being able to interact with them. And I think they're not really a good application of technology. So I just, based on my IT degree and my technology background and my Masters of International Business, I realized that I had a better solution. So I think maybe Yeah, hopefully it answered your question. How did I end up in the disability
So
sector?
more about with that QR, because QRs can still be problematic for.
Hang on 1 second. Just because people can't see you, you are in a wheelchair. Because you
Yeah.
said, obviously, I have a disability. I just want to get that across to
Yeah.
people. And that sort of helps paint the picture of, in particular, why QR codes are a bit of a nightmare. I mean,
Yeah.
they're a bit of a nightmare for people who aren't in wheelchairs, because
Yeah.
you often have to do some sort of gymnastics to reach over people to try and get to the thing that is stuck in the middle of this gigantic table often. So you've developed an app. Tell us about the app.
That's exactly my point, right? So the QRs, it's a physical thing that you still need to physically access, right? So it's still very restricting, like a physical thing that you need to be able to physically reach with your physical phone and physically scan before you can interact with it. And I think that's just terrible. Those systems, apart from the fact that they open a terribly designed interface, usually the interfaces that are linked to those QRs, often the case is it's just a website that opens up on your phone. You don't know straight away that it's a website, but usually it's just a website. And I've seen countless people struggling to interact with these things. It's not just the disabled. It's certainly not just the physically disabled, but people of all ages, all persuasions have struggled to interact with these interfaces. And often you hear people saying, "Oh, can I just order? I just want to just speak to somebody," because they struggle so much, or as soon as they sit down, they're sighing, it's a QR again, And I just didn't like that idea, and I actually think it's the wrong approach anyway. Being geared from a venue's perspective, so every venue has a different system, right? So everywhere you go, there's a different system. That's why you have to adjust. You have to adapt to whatever system they're using. It forces you to adapt, right, to whatever they're using. So that's it's like going to a cafe and we don't take Australian dollars here. You have to pay in something else, so now I have to, in order to get your goods, I have to be able to get this other thing or have this other thing to be able to interact with. It's ridiculous, at the end of the day, the user, the customer, is the one paying, right? So they shouldn't have to be forced to adapt and adjust to be able to just interact with cafe or restaurants' product offerings.
Yeah, it raises a good point there around the user interface or accessibility, where a lot of the time, especially in this mainstream high turnover industries, it's very processed, fast paced for the purpose of getting more sales generated.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take into consideration a lot of different access needs, like the actual physical placement of those, it being locked in it's not being other options for you to be mobile, COVID removing staff a lot, or having a big impact on this way that we order and have service delivery in restaurants as well. So it's a good call out and a good function that you're sort of trying to develop and to overcome. So can you tell us more about how your app helps solve that problem?
So another thing, an issue with these QR systems that we all have encountered is that you don't start the process until you have scanned this QR, right? You can't see the menu until you've scanned this QR, right? So you scan a QR, it might ask you for your phone number. You have to put in your phone number. It sends you a message that's called an OTP, one-time password. It's that message contains a little code. It asks you what code did we just send you. So all this garbage you have to go through can take half an hour before you even get to see the menu, right? And then once you do see the menu, you select what you want, right? If heaven forbid the app closes or the website closes, because if it closes halfway through that process, you've lost it, right? You need to restart the whole you need to rescan that QR, right? It may recognize you because you did it a few moments ago, but it might then ask you, what's your number again? They'll do the OTP, right? So that because those websites are just an instance, they need to stay live on your screen, right? So you go through all this process, you look at the menu, you choose what you want, like never mind navigating those interfaces, right? Like where's the drinks menu, where's the food menu, where's the scroll, the horizontal scroll that you have to go through to find the different sections of the menu, right? Whatever, you see what you like, you choose what you want, blah 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 blah. Maybe you get to submit, finish, send the order. Then it says, what's your credit card number? Then you have to bring out your wallet, you get your credit card on the table, and then you have to type in your credit card. You better do it quick, because if you don't do it quick, you might lose that again. You might have to restart the whole process again. So continue, quick, put in your credit card details, what's your name, where you live, what's your credit card number, blah, blah, blah. And then submit the order, right? Then the order goes through, right? But once the order goes through, they don't know anything about you. All they know is that you're Bob on table 4, right? They don't know that, you're in a wheelchair. So they might just shout out your name and expect you to come and pick up your delivery, right? Pick up your food. They don't know that, you have whatever ailments that it is, cognitive or otherwise. So if they do bring your food to the table, they have no idea beforehand when they come to you, right? And I think that's just completely wrong. The way Piatto works is it all starts from the user, right? It starts from the customer. So the customer, the user, constructs their user profile to begin with, right? The user profile contains simple information about themselves, first name, maybe last name, an email address, a photo to identify the person. But also, it allows the user to save their accessibility requirement. So, mine, for instance, on Piatto says that I'm in a wheelchair. So, and you might have in there that you're deaf or blind, or you require a sensory minimal location to sit, right? So every order that you submit through Piatto, which is what I'm calling our platform, every order that you send via Piatto will have that information attached. So when the order reaches the restaurant or the cafe or the bar or the food truck or the food van or the pop-up, they will know straight away of your accessibility requirements, and they will hopefully accommodate. They will know ahead of time that, I might need to, maybe bring this food out to this gentleman, or just be mindful of how they get their order to the person. I feel that most people want to do the right thing, and most people will help out if they know what's needed. If they know that they just need to change a little bit, or maybe just adjust a little bit, then they will do that. The worst space is the event space, because the event space is just full of food trucks, right? Usually on a grassy mound hill, right?
With steps at the front of it, and someone and the bench is too far back that tall people still can have to lean over and shout for the server to hear you.
So I either need to push around this hill, up and down this hill on grass, to go to the different food vans and just try to look up at their menu that is usually up on the wall behind them, not so visible, and there might be a crowd of people also trying to look at the menu. I have to push my way through them, try and get a sight of that menu, and then once I make my choice, I then have to communicate.
Well, that's if you want what's on the menu that you just did, not go to the next three vendors in an event space.
So if this wasn't the right van, I then need to push to the next place. I might have to push to all of them. Maybe I just want to see what's on offer first before I make my choice. What else? What are the other vans doing? So I have to push from van to van to van on grass. On a mound hill, whatever, hilly mound, grass hill, whatever.
Inaccessible terrain.
Yeah, inaccessible terrain. And one by one, and then back to the one that I think that I can remember. Oh, I like that one. And I go back there and then try and shout from down in a wheelchair, shout up to the food van attendant. Oh, may I please have that? And then he has to grab the FPOS machine and try and hold that down to me, and I need to get my wallet out and then tap my card, and just physical crap, really. It's just all just
well said.
It's all just physical.
I can see the benefits even for non-disabled people. I tell you what, the amount of events I go to, and I continually walk 20 times up and down around the food court trying to actually work out what I wanted. And then when I decide what I wanted, I go back to the next one, and the line's too long as well. This has a lot of benefits overall.
I mean, like I said, I have a technology background, right? So it's 2024. We have way better technology. Where technology is today, you can cut out so much physical crap. It's just ridiculous that we're still doing it that way. I was in Melbourne recently, and Melbourne has to be the most inaccessible place that I've ever seen in my life. And I've traveled the world. Vietnam was pretty difficult, but
I should think so. By the by.
Yeah. However, in Vietnam, in those sort of places, they don't worry so much about the rules.
Yeah.
I remember we caught a boat from Nha Trang or Nha Trang, as they say. I don't know how to pronounce it. Nha Trang or Nha Trang. And we caught a boat from Nha Trang to another island, right? And the boat just came in on the beach, and people walked out to the boat and jumped in the boat. But when it came up to when it was ready for me to go on, like, well, where's the jetty or where's the? Yeah. They didn't have any of that. And then the two guys from the boat just came and just whisked me out of my wheelchair and just carried me straight onto the boat. And they're like, yeah, no worries, whatever, let's go. They wouldn't do that here because they're just too freaked out about liability. So.
And that not everyone wants to be carried.
No, you're right.
And so it can freak you out.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last time my wife tried to pick me up, I was, not this weight, and even then it's unnerving.
Yeah.
I just so.
It's time and place too. Like
it is.
It's time and place and sort of. Yeah, I have another instance in Melbourne when I was on the footpath of Flinders Street. There was some roadworks. I think the footpath was broken in a section, so they had a detour, right down the road and then around and then back to the other side of the same footpath. So the footpath was broken in the middle, and so they had placed this terrible little plastic yellow piece of whatever that was imitating a ramp to
imitation ramp.
It looked like they just dropped it.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't attached to anything. It wasn't attached to either side. They just dropped it as a sort of platform, I guess, to help traverse the road to footpath journey, right? It reminded me a bit like a seesaw. Have you ever seen those seesaws in like a ski field? They in a terrain park, they have these ski fields that these seesaws. You get on one side, and then as you're moving, the seesaw.
Tilts
you
to
know
the
a
other
seesaw
side.
tilts down, right? So it was like a seesaw. So imagine this piece of plastic that hundreds of people have been traversing every day, and then throw in a few teenagers that like to jump on this thing because they love the satisfaction of the boom noise and knowing that they are responsible for making that noise. I produced that noise, right? So you've got this piece of plastic that was all warped and not right at all. And I had a little electric wheel on the back of my wheelchair called Smart Drive. A lot of other wheelchair users out there probably would know of it. And it's great. Smart Drives are awesome when they work. Sometimes they fall off, but when they work, they're great. When I first got it, I thought this is the best thing since sliced bread. But anyway, so I had this little Smart Drive on, and I thought I can tackle this little yellow ramp. Yellow ramp, not ramp thing. I thought I can tackle it. Give me a go. So I took a run up. I used this electric wheel to give me a momentum to get my momentum up. And then I tried, and I didn't make it. But fortunately,
yes,
a man who just happened to be walking up the same detour at the same time as me was just behind me, and he just quickly gave me a nudge. And unfortunately he did, because I could have fallen backwards. Because this ramp was so warped, it could have flipped me backwards. But unfortunately, this man was there to just give me a nudge, you know. And look, yeah, generally I hate being pushed. I hate people just helping me. What I hate the most is people first asking me if I want help, and then when I say no, they still help anyway.
Self-helpers.
That's the worst thing. But you know, like I said, time and place, right? This guy saved me from hitting my head on the road and the embarrassment and the effort that I would have had to expend in getting back up in my wheelchair. But, you know, fortunately he was there just to give me a nudge. Yeah. A nudge. What's the word?
A nudge.
A nudge, yeah.
You got it.
So, yeah, you know. Anyway, so staying in Melbourne.
Yes.
Right? The number of cafes that are... The reason it's so inaccessible, right, it's... Most shops were up steps. Yes. 1 or 2 steps. Okay, so no, I get... Yes, Melbourne's an old city. There's a lot of old buildings. That's the common excuse, right? But I don't think that's a good enough excuse. So I went to a few cafes that were so inaccessible. I couldn't even get inside, right? And all I wanted was a coffee. I just want a takeaway coffee. I just really wanted a coffee. And where I was staying on Flinders Street, the closest place that the hotel concierge referred me to. Oh, that's another thing. Concierge, people, you get recommendations of where to go. They say, oh, there's a great place down the road. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been recommended to go to this great place that's down the road that's totally inaccessible.
Yeah.
It just doesn't run through their head. Right? I understand that. People, you know, when you walk around, you're not conscious of steps and stuff. You don't take a mental note like, oh, I walked up a step and then I walked up another step and then walking. Oh, and then I walked up another step. You just walk, right? I can kind of guess that because nobody ever seems to remember like, oh, it's up steps. It's totally inaccessible. So they refer me to it, and I'll go to all this effort to get there, and then I can't even get inside, right? And so that's what Piatto is all about. Piatto is all about engagement, right? Allowing somebody to engage with the hospitality vendor, even if they're not accessible, right? So at the end of the day, it's just about getting a message across. You know, like, hey, I'd love a coffee. This is the kind of coffee I want. Here's my money. Oh, I'm in a wheelchair. Would you mind bringing the coffee out to me? And most times, they don't mind. You know, like, so in Melbourne where I was staying, I was referred to this place that was the closest place, and I was in a rush, right? I had an Uber on the way, just wanted to quickly get a coffee and then go. But when I went to that coffee shop, it was up multiple steps, and fortunately there was a stranger just happened to be walking by, and I said to him, excuse me sir, would you mind just going in and asking them for a doppio? A doppio is a double espresso. And he did, and then the lady came out and she said, hello, what would you like? And well, I did send my order with that gentleman, but sure. May I please have a doppio? And then she went back in and made the doppio. Then she came back out again with the EFTPOS machine. Fortunately, her EFTPOS machine was wireless, and that's not always the case. It's another problem too. Right. So then I was able to tap my card and got my doppio. So it took her 2 trips. It took me having to,
flag down a stranger.
Thankfully, there was one that it would help you quick enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And then all this effort just because I wanted a coffee. You know, I wanted to get my message across. Hey, I'm in a wheelchair, but may I please have a doppio? And here's my money. You know, not back and forth, and, you know, trying to shout or flag down some stranger or whatever. It's just terrible.
So on Piatto, do restaurants and cafes sign up to be on the app? How does that work?
Yeah, so hospitality vendors do need to sign up because I need information from them.
Right.
Like, what's their menu? What? How much is a cappuccino
Doppio.
or a doppio? Yeah. How much do you charge for this? But more importantly, I then need to send them a link. I use Stripe as a payment gateway. I then need to I send them, when they sign up, I get all their details, and then I'll send them a link. It's simply, it's a very quick process. They click that link, they create a Stripe account, and it connects their new Stripe account with my Stripe account automatically. And then that way I'm able to transfer money to them. Without that, I'm not able to put money into their bank account for the cappuccino or the doppio that people then order through Piatto.
Yeah.
So it's very much lined at restaurants and hospitality venues that are already connected with Stripe then.
So they don't need to be.
Okay.
So they don't need to be connected to Stripe. This link is so simple. I send them a link, and then they put in their details, and it'll automatically link their account with my account, and then because of that, I'm able to process payments and send them money directly.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, it's just a menu, you know, and you know, and even that on itself, right, is of some use, you know, allowing a, you know, I've always had I always wanted to design Piatto as the one-stop shop for hospitality, right? Instead of, you know, I can't tell you the efforts that I've gone to just to try and find a coffee. You know, I really want coffee sometimes, most times, but
All the time.
all the time. But let's say, like, I travel a fair bit,
Yeah.
and often I find myself in a new area, and I wake up. First thing I want is a coffee. So then, you know, maybe I'm able to get a coffee at the hotel. Whether that's any good or not is another question. But maybe I'll ask the concierge where's the nearest coffee shop, and yeah, he'll tell me, oh, it's blah 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 blah, and I'll get there and it's not accessible, or he forgot that there is a big hill there on the way there, or whatever, right? So I'll go to all this effort just to find a coffee, right? It might not be any good. Then maybe I want lunch. Maybe then I'll go to all this other effort to find lunch again. You know, it's just terrible. I wanted to design this one-stop shop that lives in your pocket. So you just pull your phone out, open Piatto, and then you're able to browse all the nearby cafes, all the nearby restaurants, bars, food trucks, pop-ups, and open them up, look at all their menus, see the whole thing, make your decision, you know, educate yourself based on what you see, what's around, saving you the effort to go and see what they have. And then the next step is being able to process that order, being able to select the items that you want. Right? So, see, when a venue first signs up to Piatto, if they're able to give us all their information and their menus and everything, then we'll be able to include that, right? And as I said, that serves some purpose, right? That I'll be able to include them on Piatto as on the one-stop shop. But if they then connect their Stripe if they then sign up and follow that link that I've sent them to connect their account with my account, then I'll, at that point, I'll be able to accept those orders and process that money. And so that will allow more people to engage with their hospitality offering, you know.
Yeah, and I think when I first talked to you about this, you were also talking about the option of potentially having, like, people who go to a particular restaurant or cafe can say a little bit about the accessibility of a certain place. In particular, like, do they have boxes in front of the disability toilet? Like, great, you have a disability toilet, but if there's boxes in front of it, it's not actually accessible, or something like that. And I think being able to tell others, or there's, you know, one step to get in, and so the venue says, oh, we're accessible, but actually with one step it's not, for whatever reason, you know. But then I think you've also said there's some people who are fine with one step but not two or three. And so if they're looking for a restaurant and they like this one and it only has one step and they're able to do that, then they can choose that. So the idea is that it has all sorts of information about the restaurant, not just its menu. Is that
sure?
Am
absolutely.
I understanding that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have what we call an accessibility rating.
Yeah.
So when venues do sign up to Piatto and they provide us their menu details and all their product offerings and how much they are, we then ask them simple accessibility questions, you know, like entrance, how accessible is the entrance? Is there a disabled toilet? Is there nearby disabled parking? Because see, that's the thing too, right? It's not just about accessibility within the venue, but what about the accessibility getting to the venue? Because we haven't yet refined teleportation.
So, waiting for the day.
Yeah. So, yes, it's about providing that information. How accessible is the venue? And I, you know, the venue might say, when I ask the venue to provide this information, they might be a little biased and lie a little bit. So I verify it. I go to these places and I'll check. But we also allow our users to review the venue's accessibility. So when they do go to these venues, if they find that yes, they do have a disabled bathroom, but it doubles as a storage room, then they will be able to let us know. Because we have access feedback as well, so we allow users to give us feedback on the accessibility, just to, you know. But also we ask users to review the accessibility features, you know, and so, you know, maybe they do have a ramp, but it's a terrible ramp, you know, or it's a really steep ramp. So yes, that is a big feature. That is, you know, accessibility ratings of the venue, because I really wanted to help disabled patrons and all people with, you know, it's not, I don't like to focus too much on disability, because, you know, we're all kind of disabled in a way, right? Or we can be disabled. You know, like, we're not all 100% all the time. You know, even a fully abled human being has a sore leg on a day, or bung knee, or, you know, or is just lazy, or
you're allowed to be lazy.
yeah, sure. You know, so like we all have access needs. We all are interested in how difficult it is to get into a place. You know, there's mothers with prams. There's with elderly people, I should say, with walking frames. You know, there's so many people with different needs, and I'm just trying to accommodate for that. I'm trying to make it easier for everybody to find, buy, and enjoy their favorites. You know, that's what I say. I say I'm Daniel. I'm a coffeeholic on a mission to make it easier for people to find, buy, and enjoy their favorites. Because it's crazy hard.
Yeah.
It like 2024 and we're still going through all this garbage. You know, I think there's a better way, and that's what I'm developing.
Do you have a question about the training of the staff at the venue? Because sometimes what I've seen in days gone by when I've been a support worker, one of my big pet hates is wait staff talking to me and not asking the person with the disability what they would like.
Yeah.
Like, I may have to answer for them because of whatever thing, but always ask them. Because you just never know who can speak for themselves and who is fine, you know, and able to engage. And even if they're not, like, it's really important that they are still asked. And I just think staff who are trained in how to get an order from someone who has a fairly visible disability is really important.
Yeah. But they also need to be educated on the fact that disabilities are not always so visible.
No. Yes, of course. But
I mean, I have actually wanted to develop a set of guidelines to provide venues on how to deal with how to take orders and how to communicate, how to interact with people who may have a disability. And how that disability may not always be so obvious. And I think staff need to be trained on how to approach it from the outset. You know, from the very beginning, approaching it in a way that could be understood and taken by anybody, whether they have a disability or not. You know, it's like an open question. It's difficult, but I have wanted to provide guidelines on how to deal with and interact with disabled customers.
It'd be very valuable but from my background within hospitality and events, it's no, we're all about customer service, but short of cultural diversity is about the extent of any kind of inclusion conversation, and that's not very prevalent when there's a lot more differences between each and every single one of us as well. But it's really positive to hear you sort of pushing this on to businesses and hospitality venue providers about being more inclusive, which is definitely one of the big aspects coming out of the Disability Royal Commission, was about being more inclusive in Australia, not just in our homes, not in specific workplaces, not just in education, but all elements as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, talking about hospitality vendors, you know, most people, even though they might come off rude in dealing with disabled customers inappropriately, then they might not be rude people themselves per se, but it's the ignorance that they just don't know how to. They just don't know how to interact with someone of this disability. So, yeah, it's just a matter of education, I think, and that's what I was hoping to provide with my guidelines, because like even in a cafe, often the barista is 15 or something. What's the earliest age you can start working?
Debatable, and it depends what industry you're in, but generally around 14 and a half is about your standard, but yeah, it's very young.
Yeah, so like they just don't know, and their supervisors usually aren't qualified to teach them either. But it's just about educating everyone on how to better interact with disabled customers and people in general. Like I said, I don't like talking about disabled people because that in itself sort of defies the logic of inclusivity, because talking about a different class of people as being somehow separate or different is kind of segregation.
Yeah.
Right?
Or having one hive mind, as if like you, one person, could possibly speak for all disabled people.
Yeah.
That's the other problem.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know most stuff. Like I'm in a wheelchair, and I'm 30. What did we agree on? 37.
37, I think the number was.
I'm 37, right? I'm in a wheelchair. I know wheelchair like the back of my hand. I know how to do wheelchair like no tomorrow. But I don't have a clue what it's like to be deaf or, have autism or, I have no idea. I mean, I know some people in that position, and I try to learn as much as I can from them, but I don't know. And that's sort of why I'm also, because I want to make Piatto better for everyone, I'm also trying to get more feedback from as many users as possible. In our slow release at the moment, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get more users with more different disabilities or different abilities or whatever. I just want more users.
More diversity.
More diversity, yeah. I just want more users with more diversity. I'm quoting it. What air quotes?
Air quotes, yeah.
Air quote diversity, close air quote.
So, Daniel, to help with this, how can people or listeners get on there to start giving you more feedback? And
good question. They're more than welcome to send me an email.
We'll also be able to put like your email and stuff in like the info title.
We have a YouTube. We have quite a few videos on YouTube at the moment.
Can people download the app yet?
No, not right now. So it's not publicly available right now, but I would just, I mean, I'd be more than happy for an email, to get engagement and people's sign of interest,
Awesome.
Yeah.
We have a newsletter as well on Substack.
Well, we'll put those links up in
cool.
the episode description. So anyone interested can just reach out directly to Daniel, check out the YouTube links and see what it's all about and grow this more to get more inclusive within the hospitality sector. I think it's a great idea, Daniel.
Thank you.
In your ideal world, what would the future of the NDIS look like?
The first thing I think of is I don't like how people talk about us as participants. I don't like how people keep referring to us as participants. I keep hearing that. Participants. Like...
Because you participate in the scheme.
Yeah.
Well, I remember back when the NDIS first came out, and there was this conversation, and it was very much, we don't want to be clients, or we don't want to be this, and it was quite a tense argument for quite a long time, and then participants came out, and then it's not. I don't know if there's one word that really works. I feel you there.
Yeah, maybe it's difficult. Maybe there has to be some word. Do we have to use a word? Like, I don't know. What?
The person.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, look, I find it tricky because I do know some people don't mind participants, some people would prefer client, some people absolutely hate client, some people would prefer customer, which I really dislike. And so the only reason I stick with participants personally is because I'm like, well, that's the word the NDIS uses. And so it's easier since I primarily try to explain to people how to use the NDIS. Using NDIS language is the easiest way I know how to do that. And so that's why I tend to stick with participants for that reason. But
how does it work?
Totally understand that.
Do they call people up and say, hello, participant?
Well, when I answer the phone, it's very much try and use names and not that tone. But I tell you, I hate writing the word participant. I am spell checking that every single time, and writing policy and procedures. You end up writing it a lot of times. So I would be all for a new word.
Yeah.
Preferably shorter.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't get my dyslexia going.
Yeah. It's like the horrific idea that Centrelink call people customers. And I'm like, well, it's not like I can shop around for another social security system.
Please say your customer reference number.
This is the only one we've got. Like, I'm not a freaking customer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess they do need a word. Maybe just a letter. What about just X? NDIS X. Because
it'll sound like it's Twitter. New Twitter.
Not Twitter.
End up with copyright infractions.
Nah, screw that. Use a different letter. There's heaps of letters. What? 26. There's 26 to choose from, right? There's got to be another letter. And then it just becomes like an algebraic equation.
Yeah.
When X equals Y plus C.
I'm self-managed.
Yeah.
Right? So, which is good and bad.
I agree.
I don't feel I get much benefit out of NDIS at the moment, other than I get some money back in my account, from the things that I usually would get, and usually have to pay for. So I still just get those things. I pick those things and I pay for them out of my pocket, and then as self-managed X or A B C D E F G, we haven't decided yet. But as a self-managed NDIS
person,
whatever, I just log in on the portal and put in details, and I'm sure that everyone knows how that works. But I don't feel like I get much. I need a lot of things, I don't have those things, but I'm kind of sick of going through the process of getting those things and trying to find or speak to anybody that is involved in, speak to the, what do they call them, area managers?
LAC, local area
I don't
coordinator.
want to talk to them, and I don't want to. Every time you ring up a new provider, they like send us your plan. Have you got to go through all this process? Like, have you got allocation for it in your plan, and what's your number, and blah blah blah, and it's just, I'm just too tired.
And when you're self-managed, they don't need any of that information, because they just send you an invoice and it's up to you to pay it, right? And if you don't put it into the NDIS system or you run out of money, well, then you're liable to pay that.
Yeah.
And so providers that would insist having all of your details, anyway, as a support coordinator, I refuse to give out my people's... I can't call them my people. I don't own them. But
it's all right.
People I support.
Nice, though. My peoples.
My peeps, who I support, I never give out their plan.
Yeah.
I give a few details, like their NDIS number. I can give you the goals, the NDIS goals, because we usually have to justify whatever that person is doing under one of the goals.
Yeah.
And then I can give you the plan dates,
maybe,
like if we can be bothered, if you request them, rather.
that goals thing sounds weird too. We'll come back to that, but keep going.
And then sometimes I'll go, okay, say someone's got $150,000 in, say, their core budget.
Shit,
and
where are they?
I've got...
How do I get that?
Wow. Okay, like $50,000 in their core budget.
Cool. Yeah.
And I go, but I know they've got like 3 different people to put this across. Well, then I've already worked out how much each gets. And so I just go, so you are allocated, $25,000, and that's your allocation. That's all you've got.
Yeah.
So you don't actually need to see the plan because I've given you all of the information.
Yeah.
There's no need for anyone to see it because it's really private information. But
I wouldn't give KFC my bank balance to order a burger.
Fair. Yeah.
They don't need to know that. They just need to be able to shut up and take my money, as they say. That was a nice segue.
Yeah, it was.
Very good.
Now the goals section.
Yeah.
Because
about that,
I've talked to Sam about how I think it's stupid too.
Yeah.
So you tell me from your point of view.
Well, I just have a question. Say, my first goal was to be cool. My second goal was to get more coffee. And my third goal was to be Superman. Right? If I then later find a provider that could maybe turn me into Batman, would they say no because that wasn't one of my goals?
Yeah, and that's why we would word the goal instead of as Superman, we'd say you want to become a superhero.
But the point,
and that way it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter so much. That's why the goals, it's better to have a goal that's really not specific and really vague, which does make it less meaningful because then it becomes kind of stupid because you're like, no, I actually want to be Superman. I don't want to be Batman. Then that's fine because then you go looking for the provider that can make you Superman. But if you're like, I don't care, I just want to be able to be a superhero, then you go, I want to be a superhero, and then you've got provider A is Superman, provider B is Batman, and provider C is what's another
Thor.
is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know, then you're able to go with whoever is providing the best service.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Although just playing devil's advocate here, the NDIS does say that you can have a goal. That doesn't necessarily mean they will fund that goal.
So I could like have my goal like, you know, number 1, like increase mobility.
100%.
Number 2, like engage with the community. Number 3, walk again.
Look, by all means, but that also doesn't mean that the agency will pay for surgery or pay for some.
Yeah.
What
Some
are the
attachments to your legs that go.
the suits, the modular suits that they're bringing out now to improve it? I don't know if they would say yes in terms of the reason. Might meet that goal, but ultimately there's a lot more things that you have to consider. So I just don't want people going out there putting "Let's become Superman" and expecting the agency to fund that.
Yeah.
Just on the in case, but it would be hilarious. Please let me know if anyone tries.
Yeah, and like typically when I'm with my peeps that I support, I'm just going to use that, my peeps.
That's much better.
I typically have the goal of community access, which I hate anyway, because we should never say that someone can access or not access the community. Like that drives me up the wall.
Yeah.
So I wish people would just forget the words community access. Maybe community participation, but even then, I don't want to participate in the community. Why are we making people with disabilities participate in the community? So anyway, that's an aside. And then the next goal is typically, you know, I want to improve independence, my independence skills.
Yeah.
And then it's often I want to engage in allied health supports. And then it's often like, then if they have a goal about, you know, employment is often another one. Or if it's about like getting into, say, SDA or, you know, something like that, then we add.
What does SDA stand for?
Specialist Disability Accommodation.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. So that's sort of roughly the goals that I get my peeps to put in their plans. And I try to avoid them because I have seen sometimes plans with like 7 or 10 goals, which makes it very difficult for me and their allied health professionals to write the reports, because we have to write reports that sort of address every single goal. So if you've got more than 3 or 4, it becomes a serious pain in the ass.
No, really? Yeah. Well, that's a bugger.
There's lots of those when we start on these conversations.
Yeah.
But it has been quite a conversation, Daniel. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us about your app and you're striving to make hospitality more accessible. I love the idea, especially being able to sit at the front of a shop and get them to bring out the coffee to you and not have to worry about it. I think that's a great idea.
I think a lot of disabled people have just given up. They just don't go out anymore.
Yeah.
And they rely on a carer to take them out, and they don't go out until their carer can take them out, just because it's too hard. Like, sure, there's people that can't go out without a carer, you know, but I do believe that, you know, people that can be independent and they just don't anymore because it's too difficult. Because
and as you said at the start of the podcast, it's 2024. Why isn't it easier?
Yeah. Like why do I have to get to shout up the 3-flight staircase just to try and order a coffee? You know, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so thank you so much, and we really appreciate your insights.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Huzzah!
Thank you for listening. Please share with people you know. Until next time, as the Green Brothers say, don't forget to be awesome.